Hello there class, Professor Feng here, and welcome to my in-depth guide to Cata DDA. Okie dokie then. So in this episode we are going to be talking about a majority of the settings, how to set up the game to how you want it, and also how to change the font style if you so desire. Okay, so the first thing you probably noticed straight off the bat is, oh my god Feng, the window size is much bigger now. You're right, it is much bigger, and I'm going to show you first of all how we go ahead and do that. So to navigate through the main menu, navigate through most menus, you use the arrow keys, so left and right, there you go, very simple. Now you can either press enter, or you can use the arrow keys up and down to go up and down and enter. Okay. So here's the option. There's a lot of options to go through. I'm not going to go through all of them, just the ones that are probably more necessity than anything else. Okay, so to navigate through these tabs here, you have to shift and comma or shift and full stop. Keep forgetting what those brackets are called.
They're called angle brackets, you noob.
Remember we couldn't get Artemis going again? Oh, he's not real? Oh, okay. So we're stuck with this twat then? Yeah? Fan-fucking-tastic. So, the way you change the window size is terminal width and terminal height. So at the moment, my terminal width is at 1864. It's actually not showing very well at the moment because of the font, which we'll go through in a bit. But as you can see, we currently have this set at 1864 pixels by 992, and of course you can adjust this to whatever you want, and if you really so desire, there's actually a full screen mode here if you really want to do that. But you do kind of need to make sure that you have roughly the right pixels before you go ahead and toggle the full screen, otherwise you won't get as much information when you're in game, so bear that in mind. Okay, so this is actually a very good time to probably talk about the different fonts you can have. So by default, the font, I've never really been a fan of this font since they changed it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to exit this. So to exit, you press escape, and then if you want to really quit, you press shift and Y. There we go. So to change the fonts, you have to go to your folder where your launcher and your Cataclysm game is. You have to find the config. Then you have to click on fonts. Now I'm going to open this with Notepad++. You can open it with just normal Notepad as well if you so wish. ++ is just generally better. So we come across this screen here, and now you'll probably notice that there's a few names here. We've got Unifont, and Unifont. So it's these ones we need to change. If we want to change the way it looks. Now you've also got a font list here, and this shows you all the available fonts that the game will support. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using something called Terminus. That's what the game used to be in. It's not Terminus, so it's Terminal. What was it, Terminus? I thought it was Terminus. Maybe I'm going a bit cuckoo here, but I could have sworn it was Terminus. I'm going to have to double check that. I could have sworn it was Terminus. Bear with me. Yes, it was Terminus. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to basically click on that. We're going to delete the Unifont, and we're going to type in Terminus. It would help if I actually spelt it right, wouldn't it? Would help if I spelt it right, wouldn't it? And even as it's set right there, so it recognizes it as a font. So we're going to do exactly the same for these. Terminus. And then Terminus. No, I could have just copied and pasted this, would have been easier, but there we go. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save that, like so. Cross these off, go back here. Now, if we launch the game, we can now see that the font size has completely changed. So that's fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and go to settings. Now you probably notice as well that on the menu you can see that there's if you look at, for example, new game, you can see that there's a white N where it says new. So you can use that as a hotkey if you want to do that instead. So if you want to see the message today, you can shift M. Or if you want to load, you can press A. Or if you want to generate a new world, you can shift W. Shift W, there we go. So that's really cool. You can do it like that as well if you so desire. Okay. So let's have a look at the options. The ones that we're going to go through, the most important ones. So first of all is default character name. So by default, you will have to type in a character name manually. Now, if you want the game to do it automatically, you can go ahead and press enter and then type in your character name. So as you can see, mine is Prof Feng, because that's me. So yeah. Auto pickup. So this one you'll probably want to not necessarily enable if it's your first time playing Cata, but what this basically does, this allows you to auto pick up items rather than pressing. I think it depends how you pick up the item, but the most it takes about 3 key presses to pick up an item. If there's an item underneath you can do it in 1 key press. The thing with picking up items, though, it does take moves. It does take time to do. So you have to bear that in mind when you have auto pickup enabled. And there are certain conditions you can change, or you can change whether you want to pick up adjacent ones. I'm actually going to select that to true, but default is false. And you can also change the weight and volume. Now, by default, I'm actually going to disable these options. I don't want to pick up every single thing that's that particular weight. There's actually something else you can do with the auto pickup. You can manually type in certain things. So for example, 9mm casing, you can type that and then it'll just auto pick up 9mm casings for you. It's really nice, actually. It's really nice that you can configure it like that. You can also have a safe mode for it. We'll talk about safe mode in a bit. Okay, auto pulp butcher, kind of the same deal as auto pickup. You can choose whether you want to pulp or butcher. You'll need to do this because what will happen is when you kill Zeds, then after a certain time they will actually reanimate and come back alive, and then you got to kill them again. So the only way to prevent that is by either pulping them or butchering them. Now pulping doesn't take as long, it doesn't take as much energy to do, but butchering does take a lot more energy. But it does give you resources, and it also increases your survival skill by butchering. But it does take up more energy, so that's the kind of the payoff there. And you can have this. You can have it auto pulp butcher when you walk across a corpse. Not necessarily a good idea, unless you've got safe mode on along with that, which we'll talk about now. So safe mode. So I recommend this if you're new to the game. Basically, what this will do is if there's any threat that you can see, that the player can see, then any key presses that you'll do will basically be void. So you have to press a certain key to carry on doing actions. Now that's to basically stop you from running around like an endless chicken towards them 3 shocker brutes over there and going, oh dear, I died. Why did I die? Because you ran into 3 fucking shocker brutes. That's why you died. That's why you died. Save mode kind of prevents that. You can, when there's a lot of enemies around, it can be annoying because you will be spending more time deactivating the safe mode. So sometimes it's best to kind of toggle it when you need it, which you can do. I believe it's the exclamation key that allows you to do that. Okay, so moving on. Do not change this if this is your first time playing. Real-time turn progression. Basically, the game works on turn system. You take a turn, then the enemies take a turn. With real-time turn progression, monsters will actually take turns as the gameplay goes, as like in real time, basically. So it changes the way the game is played. I'm actually really considering about possibly doing a series with that in mind. Maybe. We'll have to see. Autosave. So yes, this is actually off by default. You may want to turn this on if you want to autosave your game now and again. probably a good idea. And you can change how often it auto saves, which is nice as well. Circular distances, this is actually off by default. Basically what this does is your view is normally a square. It looks very unnatural. Circular distances make it more natural for the most part. It just looks better, but again, you can change it to whichever you like. That's the fantastic thing about this game. You can change basically most aspects, and you know, up to your personal preference. Simple as that. Alright, so drop enemy empty containers. This is off by default. This basically allows you, if you really want to if you really want to get rid of empty containers that you use. So for example, if you drink a bottle of sports drink, if it's empty, normally it will stay in your inventory, but you can have it so that it's chucked. If you pick watertight, it will actually keep that empty bottle because it's a watertight container. But say for example, a packet of crisps, if you eat that packet of crisps, then it will get chucked, even if you have a watertight, because obviously a plastic packet isn't watertight. So yeah, that's really cool. Sound, of course, we got it disabled by false because YouTube. Okay, so system language, of course, if you're not English, if you don't understand English, then you can pick French, Dutch, Italian, blah 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 blah. Yeah, everything. There's quite a lot of different languages the game supports, which is really nice. System language is, of course, the standard, so we're going to stick with that. Temperature unit, it's on Fahrenheit by default. Don't put it on Celsius. Put it on Celsius. I don't care if you live in the US. Put it on Celsius anyway, because it's superior. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Don't argue with me. Celsius is superior. Okay? Right. So then you can also change miles per hour and kilometers per hour for speed units. Mass units you can change to kilograms and pounds, and volume units you can change litre, quart, and cup. Cup. Oh my god. No, not cup either. Stick it on litre. Forget cup. Oh my god. What's next? Bra sizes? Anyway, time format. You can change to 12-hour, military, or 24-hour. We'll stick at 12. Force yes and no prompts. Probably want this on, because there's going to be that time where you try and walk over a landmine, and you'll blow yourself up and think, why didn't I have this on? Because what that would do is that would actually say, do you really want to step on this landmine and kill yourself? No, not particularly. So yeah, good idea to have that on if you so desire. Snap to target, query and disassemble. Query and disassemble is something I usually take off, because normally when I disassemble something, I mean to disassemble it. Although if you do accidentally press disassemble a lot, you may want to keep this on, just so you know. Are you sure you really want to disassemble your light survivor suit? No, not really. What else is important? Probably draw a vehicle face indicator, although this is on by True now, it didn't used to be. Basically it shows you where your vehicle is facing if you're driving or if you're just in the vehicle. Some vehicles do look the same on both ends, so yeah, it's probably a good idea to have that enabled. I suppose if you're using the tile set, it's not so bad, but if you are playing with the ASCII, then yeah, you probably do want that. Sidebar position, sidebar style. This is personal preference. Most of this for me is on default, except for the sidebar style. I prefer the wider. That's how it used to be. I think it was last year it was 10th of the narrow, and I'm not a fan of it because it doesn't show you as much information, and it's all scrunched up, so you got to really fucking squint so you could to see the information. So I keep it on wider. Aim window style as well. I've changed this because I don't like looking at bars. Never have done. I prefer numbers, percentage chances. So that's what we've got for this. What else is important? Nothing there really. Animations, I mean, if you don't have a very good computer, I mean, if you're running a toaster from 1980s, then you probably want to take animations and stuff off. But I mean, even on the Toastmatic 3000, you can run run animations and stuff pretty easily. That's another great thing about Cata. It runs on basically anything, so that's fantastic. Of course, we've already gone through the terminal height and width. You can choose to use tiles or not as well. So if you don't like the tiles, or you just want the old look of the ASCII, then you can just change that. That's fine as well. I do find that tiles make much better viewing, especially for YouTube videos, so that's the reason why I tend to have it on. I've gotten used to it as well. And you can also change what tile set. One thing I will mention now is if it's your first time playing, do not pick the isometric chest hole, because that actually changes the way the game it doesn't change the way the game plays, but it changes the way you look at it. So it changes it to more like a 3D isometric view, like a bird's eye view. It's actually really cool, but for your first time playing it, just get used to using chest hole or any of the other ones. And not the isometric, but isometric is really cool. It reminds me a lot of what was that game called? No, Mario. That does it really cool. Pixel minimap. You can add this on if you want to, if you don't want it on. It's quite useful, so it's definitely worth having on. You can change every aspect of it. You can change whether they're dots, solid squares. You can change how often they blink, etc., etc. And of course you can change the display. We're going to keep it to the monitor, but you can change what monitor it is, so that's cool. Again, you can change full screen as well, or even window borderless. Software rendering, if you want to use the graphics card acceleration, I've just got that at false because the game doesn't really need it. And then you can have scaling mode as well, which will scale to the nearest native resolution. I don't have this on by. I prefer to change my own terminal rather than having the game do it. So, yeah. Right. So let's go over to the debug. So this is the more interesting stuff. So distance initial visibility. So when you first spawn into the game, some of the maps already revealed for you. Usually like 15 tiles away. I mean world tiles. I don't mean like literally 15 walking tiles. I mean world tiles. So you can actually turn this down if you really want. You can even have it down to like 3, which is pretty nice if you want that kind of stuff. I normally have it on 20, to be honest. I like having a huge visibility distance. Some people might say it's a bit cheaty. I don't care. You can play this game how you want to. That's the whole point. Okay, so you can change how many stat points you have. Now, by default, if you was to have this in a single pool, which is how a lot of people tend to play this, you have 8 points. It used to be 6, but now it's 8. So you have a pool of 8 points, which you can spend on character creation. You can also get negative stuff to gain more points if you want to spend more points on good stuff. So yeah, this can be changed. You can max this up if you want, which is a bit silly, but you can do that if you so desire. If you do like the way that it forces you to choose points in separate areas, then yeah, you can change these if you really want to. Maximum trait points. So what this will do, this will limit how many points you can actually gain or lose from the trait pool. We'll talk about that in a separate video when we talk about character creation. Skill training speed. This is at 1 by default. You can increase it or decrease depending how you want to do it. I mean, it's up to you. I'll keep it on default. Default's fine. Skill rust. This used to be a really annoying feature of the game, even back when it was normal Cataclysm, when Wales was on it. Basically, if you don't use a skill in a certain time frame, then you'll actually start losing experience. I never really liked it. A lot of people didn't like it, and in the end, it's actually like off by default. But if you really want to do that, you can you can select this. Now there's a few different versions. Vanilla is basically you just lose it in general. Capped, so you'll only lose skill. You only lose skill XP to the nearest number, I think. So if you was 2 in dodging and you had 34% experience working towards it, it would only go down to 2. And then you got intelligence capped, which is capped by your intelligence instead. I'm not 100% sure how that one works, but oh yeah, that's normal intelligence. That one just is depending on how smart you are, and then that one's the cap on top of it. Okay, right. Experimental 3D field of vision. I mean, if you really want to, but no, I'm fine with that. Right, world defaults. So by default, you keep the world. Now this is a roguelike, so I mean it's completely up to you. But I prefer to have it on delete. So what this will do is when your character dies, the world dies as well. But a lot of people do like having it kept. So you know, if their character does die, then if they make another character on that world, then they can actually find their first character and take all his goodies. I mean, it's a nice idea in concept, but I've just never been a fan of it. Right, size of cities. So this is where you can change how big or small you want the cities. So a smaller number will make the cities smaller, a higher number will make the cities higher. Just bear in mind though, if you max this number, your world's just going to be full of buildings. I mean, that might actually be pretty damn difficult, to be honest. City spacing, similar idea, except this time if you increase the city space, and then you're going to have less frequent cities in the world in general. But if you decrease the number, you'll actually get an increase in the amount of cities in general. So bear that in mind. Spawn rate scaling factor. So this will determine how many monsters will actually spawn. So 1 is default. If you want to double the amount of monsters, then you put it to 2. If you want to triple the amount of monsters, you put it to 3. If you want to halve the amount of monsters, you put it to 0.5, etc, etc. Again, you can change this to how you like. If you feel like the game's a bit too hard, then you might want to halve it. If you feel the game's too easy, then you might want to double it. That's a general rule of thumb. Carrying spawn rate scaling factor. This is actually a new thing I haven't seen yet, but this is apparently a scaling factor that determines how often creatures spawn from rotting material. I've no idea. I think this might be related to when zombies reanimate. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. But this is fairly new. I'm not too sure what that actually does, so probably best to keep it 100% for now. If one of you guys in the comments want to explain what that is, then feel free as well. You know, that's definitely something. If you want to ask any questions for a specific option as well, feel free to ask. Okay, item spawn scaling factor by default 1. If you want to halve the amount of items that you see, you put it to 0.5. If you want to double the amount of items, you put it to 2. Now, one thing you can do is, if you notice, as you press left and right, it'll go up and down very slowly. But what you can do instead, if you really want to, is if you press enter, you can actually type in the number instead. So if you want, say, 10 times the amount of items spawning, then yeah, it'll go straight to that, and it saves you having to hold right for 20 minutes. It's pretty cool. Obviously, we don't want to cheat, so right, NPC spawn scaling factor. This is for dynamic NPCs. For the most part, these are usually turned off because they can be a bit buggy. They're definitely a lot better now than what they used to be, but they can still be a bit buggy, so most people do kind of have them off. And this just determines the scaling factor. I think higher will give you more NPCs, lower will give you less NPCs. Monster evolution scaling factor. So one of the cool things that was added a few years back is that normally when you come across Zeds, they'll just be that Z, and then they'll just stay as that Z. So that normal Z there, yeah, that one that's stuck on the fence, he's just going to stay as a normal Z. But with monster evolution scaling factor, depending how long the world's been, you know, how long the longer you go on that particular game, the more likely that Z there, that might turn into a shocker brute. Well, it probably won't. It might turn more into a tough zombie, as a better example. So that's a really cool concept, and you can actually change this. So a high number will actually slow the evolution. So don't get this mixed up. So a high number will actually slow down evolution. So if you feel like there's too many shocker brutes or zombie masters, then you might want to turn this up. You might want to make this higher. But so if you want to halve it, you'll put it on 8. But if you want it to be faster, if you want the evolutions to be faster, if you want it to be twice as fast, then you'll stick it on 2.0. Right, monster speed and resilience, you can change this to how you like. So of course, lower number will reduce it, higher number will increase it. The game for the most part is balanced around having these at 100, but if you feel like the zombies are a bit too fast for your liking, or you want Romero type Zeds kind of thing, then yeah, you can change the speed and the resilience. Right, default region type. There used to be a desert region type, which was experimental, but it did. I think it fell through by the look of it. But yeah, default is all you can pick anyway. You can change the time of day that you spawn. You can change the season. You can change how long the season is. So by default, it's 14. So you got 14 days until the season changes. If you want a more of a natural one, a natural season, then what was the number now? If you want it, if you really want it in real life seasons, then you want to change this number to probably 20, 28. Feng can't math. About 90, so about 90 days if you want to change it to real life days, but you don't really need that if you don't want to. 14 is perfect. It's perfect in my opinion. You can also scale the amount of construction. So construction does take quite a bit of time, and you can scale this depending if you want to take longer or if you want to make it faster. Obviously the lower number will make it faster, the higher number will make it slower, so bear that in mind. And you can also change the season, so it's permanently that season. So if you want to do like a volcanic winter, you can have it eternal winter. Really cool. Okay, so the more interesting stuff now, Wonderspawns. Now this is something that I do like playing around with now and again, but in my opinion it's a bit buggy the way the Wonderspawns work. So by default, monsters will spawn in the world, and then they'll stay there until you either kill them or lure them away or do whatever you want. So in general, monsters don't really respawn unless you didn't like butcher them or give them a good hiding. What Wonderspawns will do is it will actually try and emulate hordes. So by that I mean if you make too much noise or if you generate too much heat or anything like that, then zombies will just spawn randomly and will go towards that source. It's actually a really cool concept. It does make the game a lot harder. It also restricts kind of the use of ranged weaponry. Well, the loud stuff anyway, like shotguns and rifles. You might be able to get away with maybe suppressed pistols and suppressed submachine guns and maybe crossbows and stuff like that. But for the most part, it will be limiting to what you can do in a sense. Now, classic zombies. This is fantastic. If you really want that Romero style of Cata, which sometimes I do. Sometimes I prefer just to play with the normal Zeds. So you'll see like normal Zeds, you'll see some tough Zeds and child Zeds and crawler Zeds and stuff like, and fat Zeds. So you've still got some of the special ones, but you haven't got these shocker zombies or acid spitters or anything like that. This is purely classic zombies. So it is definitely more of a Romero type or The Walking Dead type of zombie. It does disable certain buildings though, so bear that in mind. I think it also gets rid of the sci-fi stuff. So if you do want the sci-fi stuff in, then it's tough shit kind of thing. But yeah, so it's cool that it's an option. This might actually be the one that you might want to pick if you are new to the game, but you don't really want to worry about the special zombies as much. So if you do want that, then it's probably it's a good way to attitude towards the game, I guess, playing classic Zeds, because it'll get you used to the tactics of just going against normal Zeds. It won't give you much. It won't give you much in terms of like the range Zeds and whatnot, but it's there if you want it. Surround start, you can make the game a hell of a lot harder just by surrounding the place where you spawn. It means you got to get the hell out of there. It makes the starting game a lot harder. Yep, it does. Especially if it decides to spawn in some feral runners or some brutes, then yeah, good luck with that. Alright, static NPCs and random NPCs. So by default, this is off. And the reason why these are off is because NPCs are still a bit buggy. But if you want to do the main quest line, you will have to have static NPCs on. So yeah, just bear that in mind if you do want to do the main storyline. And there is a main storyline, there didn't used to be. But if you do want to do that, then you're definitely going to have to put these as on. Random NPCs, that's if you want NPCs in the random. Now, some of these might be friendly, some of these might be hostile. It's up to you. Mutations by radiation, this is usually on true by default. I mean, you can turn this off if you really want to. There's not that many places that are radiated to the point where it would cause mutations, but there are some places, and some people have characters that purposely go to these places to get irradiated so they can mutate. So that's completely up to you if you want it on or off. Experimental Z levels, I've got this off by default. It's still a bit buggy, but basically it makes it to more of a Dwarf Fortress style of thing. So if you've got so it'll simulate Zeds that are Z levels above and below you and stuff. It's really cool. It's actually a really cool concept. It's just not quite there yet. Align up and down stairs, this is off. I think this has a few problems. This might cause a few problems with the way stuff's located, so you might want to keep it on false. And character pool points, so you can choose any multi-pool only or no freeform. So basically, remember what we mentioned in the debug about these points? That basically allows you to do any. So if you keep it at default any, you can choose between having a pool, a single pool, where you can choose as many points, where you can put your points into anything. You can have the multi-pool, which means you can only put points into certain things, and then you can have freeform, which means you can do whatever the hell you want. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's it for the options. If you've stuck around for this 20 minutes, I know it was long, but we kind of had to get that out the way, getting the settings out the way, so that you understand what a majority of them are and how they're going to affect your game. We will probably come back to this. Some of the settings depending on what videos we come across, but that's probably the boring bit out the way, guys, and I apologize you did have to like sit through with that, but there's no other way you really could have done that, to be honest. And I think that's it then, class. So I shall see you for the next lesson. Just to let you guys know beforehand, basically these next 6 weeks are probably we're not going to see too many videos of this nature, just due to the fact that the kids are off, and you know I've probably picked a really terrible time to start this series off, but just please bear with me. I'll get some more done over the school holidays, and then once the kids are back at school, I should be going full speed ahead. So thanks for bearing with me, guys. I hope you're enjoying this series, and I'll see you for the next one.